SODEC's Cours Écrire competition. I'm assuming if you're here, it's because you already know about this screenwriting competition run by SODEC out of Quebec. There's a link below with more details so you can read more. But basically, I'm mainly here to tell you about my experience and convince you to apply. Because if you're thinking about it, you probably have that voice in the back of your head telling you you're not good enough, you can't do it, why would they pick me? I had all those things going through my head too. So I'll help you through that. For a little bit of context, I was a finalist 2 years ago. I won the Writers Guild of Canada Prize, and it basically kickstarted my career. Since doing SODEC's Cours Écrire, I've written more films, I've received my first grant, I've attended markets and labs at TIFF, Berlin, I've started my production company, and yada, yada, yada. My point is, this program was hugely instrumental to me and my growth as a filmmaker, and I want you to apply. Obviously, if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Subscribe. I'll try to get to them. No promises. But here are the kind of 6 bullet points that were really my takeaways from this experience. So the first one was this program really helped me refine my writing process and my craft and recognize it as an iterative design process that's kind of always evolving. So screenwriting isn't something that you kind of do and you write 1 draft or 3 drafts and it's done. It continues until you shoot it, basically. You'll have producers who come on board, they ask for revisions. And Cours Écrire really helped me understand this process and recognize that it's continuous, that's not an end goal. And for more specific context, when I applied to Cours Écrire, my script was at what I called a V7. And by the end of the program, it was at a V27. And the reason I'm saying that is because the other 2 fiction films I did, I went to camera with a V7. So what I learned is through getting all that feedback, through doing table reads, through sharing the scripts, there was a lot more work to be done to get what I thought was a finished script to a script that was like not only production ready, but ready for people on a jury or an organization to invest in. Because that's really, when we're talking about government grants or private equity, what you're doing is you're trying to create almost like a business plan, a blueprint that people can look at and read and say, oh, there's a movie here. And now I kind of take it as an iterative design process. So the reason I mention this also is because this will be the same when you apply for grants, markets, labs. You should always think of the application process not as the end goal, but as the beginning. Even if you get rejected, now you have a draft that you can revise for the next program or for the next lab or for the next deadline. And it'll just get better and better and stronger and stronger. And so that was really the huge, huge learning lesson for me from this program. The second one was mentorship. Through Cours Écrire, they partnered me with an amazing script editor who was kind of like my coach the whole way through the competition. And having someone who was dedicated and committed to reading my drafts, giving me feedback, who understood the story I was trying to tell, that he wasn't trying to make it his own. He was someone I could bounce ideas off of. And I never had that sort of relationship before. And now it's been in the last 2 years since. Now I'm fortunate to have a lot of mentors and I ask for a lot of help. And I admit that I don't know things all the time. And that was another thing that kind of came through this program. And now that story editor, we're friends. He's consulted on my other projects. And it's actually a really common practice in the industry to have script editors, story editors. And I think on some level, I probably just didn't have the courage or vulnerability to admit that I needed help. I just thought they would tear my stuff apart. And now I realize feedback is a huge, huge part of the artistic process. And that's thanks to the iterative design, the mentorship. And that brings me to the third point, which is community. The other thing is, I was in this program with 7 other writers and we helped each other. I think prior to this, I would have thought that any other filmmaker is a competitor and we're competing for a grant, we're competing for an opportunity. And that's not actually true because the reality is, using my writing cohort as an example, all 7 of those scripts are completely different. I couldn't have written what writer number 1 is writing. I couldn't have written what writer number 3 is writing. I need their help. I need their feedback. They want mine. And so the sense of community, again, having 7 other writers that were committed to giving each other notes was hugely, hugely valuable. The next one is deadlines and milestones. Again, as a writer previously, I wrote mornings, weekends, nights, whenever I could. Having kind of like school, like a course where I had, I think it was 3 months to go from that draft to a final draft. And there were check-ins, and every week or 2 weeks we would meet. And on the weekends we do table reads, which were amazing. Having those deadlines to meet was really, really helpful for me. Maybe some other people are more disciplined. I'm definitely more disciplined now after having done this course, but having 3 months where it was like a crash course, hitting deadlines. And again, I mentioned the table reads. All of us, the writers, the mentors, we'd get in a room. I would be able to cast my film, tell people who was playing who, and then we do the read. And it's amazing how, like, when you read your own script, whether it's in your head or out loud, and then other people read it out loud, you realize like that's not working. That doesn't sound like I thought it should sound. And you do another draft. And that was immensely helpful to have all those table reads. The maybe obvious one, but I'll say it anyway. The next one on my list is building your profile as a professional writer and your career. Once Cours Écrire had stamped my passport in a way, once I had that credential on my resume, it really opened a ton of doors. The Writers Guild Prize helped a lot as well. But I don't think I would have gotten into the TIFF lab without it, or the Berlin Fiction Toolbox I did, or I have an agent now. And really, a lot of it comes from earning trust and people stamping your passport. It really opens a lot of doors and moves you to the next stage of your career, gets you introduced to people, and kind of validates you. Because, in a lot of cases too, people don't have time to read your 7-page script, my 7-page script, let alone like a feature. So they're always looking for basically ways to filter you out of their reading pile. So these kind of stamps on your passport, I keep going back to that, but I think it's such a great analogy that these stamps on your passport really helps move you along and build your profile. Other than that, I want to also kind of set some expectations for after the program. I hope you get in. I hope you win the grand prize, but regardless, most people who go through this writing program don't make the films. And there are a lot of reasons for that. One of them is, at least the year that I did it, one person won the grand prize. It wasn't me. And that comes with a production deal. That's cool. And I can't wait to see his film. But that means there are 7 writers who have to find a production route to make the film, which I'm working on. And I know a number of the other writers who didn't win the grand prize were working on. So also separate your expectations as a writer from a director or producer. So I'm saying apply as a writer, hope you win the grand prize, but be prepared to have another phase of learning how to get the film made and then how to make the film if you're planning on directing. My last tip on that front is on preparing the application. Again, going back to iterative design, I'm not sure when the deadline is exactly, but whenever you see this video, think about from now to depositing your application, and don't leave it to the last minute. To be honest, as a writer, I think my subconscious does a lot of the hard work. But to do that, I have to write a draft, sleep, revise, sleep, ask for feedback, wait until people have time to read my stuff and give me feedback, then revise, and ultimately then submit. So really take this seriously. Start your drafts now. Send that out to feedback. Yes, send it to other writers, but also send it to just like your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your friends, strangers. They're the ones that are going to be able to read your application to Cours Écrire ton cours and say, this doesn't make sense. You shouldn't need someone to know industry jargon or to be able to read between your lines to say, I understand the story they're trying to tell. I understand their perspective. I understand who they are. You should be able to give your Cours Écrire ton cours application to some random person at Starbucks, and they should be able to get it. So give yourself time to work through that part of the iterative design process of preparing this submission to this competition. Like I said, if you don't get in, no worries. You have an amazing package that you could use to apply next year, or potentially even use to apply for a grant with Canada Council, SODEC, Film Fund. So also consider that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I will try to answer them. So good luck with your application to Cours Écrire ton cours. If you've made it this far, my main thing is apply. Whatever voice inside your head is telling you that you're not going to get in or you're not going to make it, do whatever you need to do to tell that voice to shut up, and take it as a continuous journey of a practice of learning to be a better screenwriter. Apply. Good luck.